Hi, I'm Patrick. This is a flight review from the archive. Before I made films of flight reports, I took photographs and wrote a travel blog at planetpatrick.net. I still do. This archive film looks back at a flight that, mainly, we're no longer able to take because of COVID restrictions. This video is shorter than normal, but I hope it's still informative. Enjoy.
See what mine looks like.
I'm Patrick Hughes and this is Planet Patrick. I took this trip to Perth in February 2019. I had a few weeks available between work contracts and Northern Ireland was getting pretty chilly, whether physically or because of Brexit, and my twitchy booking fingers considered all kinds of warm locations and landed on the continent that is suffering terrifyingly high temperatures, Australia. I wanted this trip to be about all the bits of Oz that I hadn't been to yet. Definitely Perth, Margaret River, Alice Springs, Darwin, Uluru and Adelaide. Shuttling between Melbourne and Sydney on previous trips has made visiting Australia very easy, but I wanted something that would bring me kind of across the country. I read a lot of blogs and travel reviews of this Qantas flight, QF10, which would take me into Perth, as it's the third longest flight in the world, certainly at the time that I took it in 2019, and it had been launched by Qantas in 2018 to replace a much longer stopover flight from London to Dubai, then on to Melbourne. Also, it was a Dreamliner alleged to reduce jet lag using innovative in-flight trickery, less recycled air, more oxygen, increased humidity on this 17-hour trip, and supposedly jet lag would be much easier. First things first, check-in. To reduce my own travel stress, I came to London from Belfast the night before, picking up a perfectly comfortable bed for the night at the Premier Inn at Heathrow Terminal 4 for about £35. After a short commute to Terminal 3, where Qantas is based, I found myself the only person in the queue about 3 hours before flight time. Let's talk about flight class. I flew economy on this flight, as both the premium and business cabin seemed extraordinarily expensive on this trip, even compared with other providers on the same route, even though they would have a stopover in Southeast Asia. A quick check of the cost of premium economy on the return flight was around $3,500 Australian dollars one way, just a touch under £2,000, around and about €2,500 or dollars. Still, I chanced my arm at check-in that a paid-for upgrade to premium economy might be available, depending on whether it had sold out or not. Usually upgrades can be bought, said the gate agent, except for the direct flight to Perth, as it's usually 100% sold out before the day of the flight. So I guess my dream of a row of 3 seats to myself in economy was definitely off. I picked up a bottle of gin and duty-free to see me through my 5 weeks in Australia and hot-footed it to the lounge area in Terminal 3. Nothing fancy, certainly no access to the Qantas lounge on my shonky bronze membership card, but still a boat hole away from the madding crowd was available through a priority pass. Terminal 3 has 2 priority pass or walk-up lounges, Aspire and Number 1 Lounge. The latter gets the better reviews, but the former serves a hot and cold buffet breakfast, and I wanted to load up before flying in case the food wasn't amazing on the Qantas flight. I found a seat in the quiet zone, and it was perfectly adequate. Furniture is showing some signs of wear, but there was a seat designed for a solo traveller with 2 UK-only sockets and a plug-in monitor for HDMI. 2 or 4 seaters also had USB plugs for charging. The problem is the lounge is a little bit noisy as it's so open plan and it's got wooden floors. But the breakfast offerings were perfectly adequate, the hot buffet offering sausages, bacon, beans, scrambled eggs, with bread rolls, but no toast. There is porridge, granola, other cereals, as well as vegan sausages for those who require it. Juices did not look to be freshly squeezed, but at this price point, that's not a surprise. The bar is stocked with basic labelled spirits and 1 type of beer. Again, perfectly adequate, and few people would want much more than that at 9:15 in the morning. Certainly I didn't want anything. Water and carbonated drinks are served from fountains, ensuring you can't slip any freebies into your hand luggage for the trip. There are 2 coffee locations, but those do not make great tea. The tea always seems to taste a little bit of coffee. You know what I mean. So all in all, this lounge is not going to win any awards for cleanliness or win over any fashionistas, but for a cuppa and something to eat before your 17-hour trip, it's better than the busy and noisy departure hall at Heathrow Terminal 3, at least when it's open. Qantas operates a pre-screening area at the gate to ensure that all passports and visas are in order, and we were held in that area for about 20 minutes before boarding. Both of the glamorous classes looked pretty good, but I was also fairly impressed by the quality of economy. It's laid out in a 3-3-3 formation on the Dreamliner. I'd prevaricated a bit on what seat to pick, and I had chosen an aisle in the centre 3 to maximise my ability to walk around and use the facilities on such a long flight. Every seat had a pretty decent pillow, a comfy blanket, over-ear headphones, and an amenity pack that contained an eye mask, toothbrush and toothpaste, and earplugs. I was in row 49, about halfway through the economy cabin. I was surprised by how comfortable the seat was. There was decent lumbar support and a reasonable width and pitch. In fact, because there is a footnet, that's a kind of a special sort of net bag into which you slip your feet to support them onto the seat in front of you, thereby making a slightly better sleep, it felt more spacious than almost any economy seat that I've used, possibly with the exception of LATAM. The screen was about 10 inches, and there was a small flip-down tray to carry my iPad. At the time I had one of those larger iPad Pros, and it did keep falling off the tray when the person in front put her seat back pretty firmly, forward and back and forward and back. So I had to stop using that, and I just used the IFE screen. To be honest, there was a reasonable selection of TV, movies and audio. Really better than that. A really good and up-to-date list. My neighbouring passenger was a little bit grumbly in that she wanted to watch The Favourite, a movie that had just come out at the time of writing. The fact that it wasn't on the watch list wasn't a surprise. There was plenty to see though. Once the seats were reclined, when passengers wanted to rest, space did get pretty tight for using the screen and the iPad tray, but it was fine as long as you also wanted to recline your seat. So the important stuff, food. The initial service was a pretty good selection of wines or spirits, or soft drinks with a snack pack. Mains included a chicken salad, penne or beef stew, served with wine, and a dessert of rhubarb and ginger tart. That was pretty filling, and the veggies were actually really delicious with this meal. Around halfway through the flight, some snacks came around. This ice lolly was lovely, it's called a milk pop, as was the fresh fruit, and a small calzone pizza, which was very salty, but kind of reawakened the taste buds a little bit. About 3 hours before landing, a wake-up drink of apple and ginger was served, and that really did startle the taste buds. I hadn't slept more than 30 minutes in total, as in that aisle seat, I couldn't move around to lean against something. In economy, your legs do get sore on such a long flight, whatever position you find yourself in. Breakfast was served around 2.5 hours before landing. While the sausage wasn't amazing quality, the rest of the breakfast was delicious. Upon arrival in Perth, the wait at customs and immigration was no more than 10 minutes max, and my bag was already going around the carousel as I went through. It took no more than a further 5 minutes for an Uber to appear, and 10 minutes from there to get into the centre of Perth. They've really worked that out at Perth International Airport. And so to the question of jet lag. Does the Dreamliner live up to the hype of reducing jet lag? And the answer is a resounding yes, it does. Despite the fact that I got almost no sleep on board on a 17-hour flight, there were no red eyes, no scratchiness that you'd normally associate with a long-haul flight. I did have a short nap when I reached my hotel, and then I got 6 hours sleep on my first night in Perth. Again, despite the fact that I was up at around 4 AM on the first full day in Perth, I had a great day and felt completely in the zone with no residual tiredness. I followed the advice that Qantas gave us, and I can't say that about many airlines, to do some light exercise on your first day. And I did a low-stress 5K jog along the waterfront in Perth. It was beautiful apart from anything else. And I got in lots of walking during the day. As I usually suffer from pretty bad jet lag, that made a huge difference to the quality of my break. The only thing that could have been better is if I had flown in business class. Thanks for joining me for this archive flight review. I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.
See what mine looks like.
I'm Patrick Hughes and this is Planet Patrick.